No one will save you. All right. So, this was one of the more surprising films that came out of this year so far because, wow. So, I remember, I think I woke up one day and I was getting ready to do stuff. And then I looked on YouTube and I saw the trailer for this. And I was like, no one will save you. What is this? And so I watched the trailer and I was so captivated. And I was like, whoa, this looks insane. This looks crazy. So then I then saw it was Hulu and I saw the release date and I went, all right, well, here we go. I know what I'm gonna be doing the second it comes out. And I went into this completely blind. I didn't they really only showed the trailer. Uh I was able to ignore the internet, thankfully, which is a hard thing to do nowadays. But I was able to avoid spoilers. I was able to avoid people talking about the story. And I went into this completely blind. And I was so surprised on how good this was. So, No One Will Save You is about a woman who lives alone. She's pretty much separated herself away from the rest of civilization, something that I personally want to do but can't. But one night, she gets a home invasion from a unexpected visitor, which then transpires into something bigger. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say. If you have not seen this movie, go into it completely blind. If you want to watch the trailer, go right ahead, but do not hear spoilers. I'm not going to talk about any spoilers here because this was so surprisingly good that it's like, oh, this was meant for you to go in blind. So I'm going to be avoiding spoilers as I always try to do. And this that's pretty much all I'm going to give you is it's a woman, she gets a home invasion from something, won't say what, but it's something that then transpires into something bigger. That's all I'm going to give you. That's all I'm going to say about the plot because I do highly recommend that you go into this not knowing any knowledge about anything in the film and just go into it completely blind because that's the technique that I used going into watching this, and I'm so glad that I did because there are surprises, there are twists, there are turns that I was not expecting. There were parts in the movie that had me on the edge of my seat, and this is one of the few movies that was direct to streaming that I wish they released in theaters. I really wish they released this in theaters. The same thing with Prey. These two movies. They both came out on. They're both a Hulu original film. I extremely wished that they released these two in theaters because they were so good. Like when I watched Prey, I was going like, well, we'll see. And then I watched it and I went, wow, that was so surprisingly good. I wish I could have saw this on a huge screen. This is on that level where it's like, wow, I really wish this was. I wish I could see this with an audience. And another thing that I loved about this movie is that there is practically no dialogue, almost no dialogue throughout the entire film. I think somebody calculated it. It said there's like 4 or 5 words being said in the film, but that's it. That's it. So I would like to see the script where it's just all nothing but action and there's no character dialogue anywhere. So it's just looking down, it's just all action headings and all that stuff and just like explaining. And then every like little piece, the character will seem like grunting or like breathing heavy in brackets. But other than that, there's not a word being spoken in this film. And I really like that. And what I also like is the woman that we follow, who is played by I think Kathleen Dever. This is basically her film. It's basically a one person play, practically, where yes, you do see other people, but they're all just like quick glimpses and they're gone. Like they're not the focus. She's the focus. So it is a one person play, and the fact that she has to basically show all these emotions just by herself and with no dialogue, it's pretty hard, and she does it perfectly, like really top notch. And it's just, this was such a good movie that honestly, this film is probably one of the best of the year. I think this would make it as one of the best films of the year for me, because I was so just surprised on how good this was. And this woman who are following, she has a backstory of her own, which is then progressed throughout the film. But it's almost like that takes a back seat, because you're just kind of focusing on what is happening, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on and a lot of stuff that are like, oh my god, like this is just insane. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a very nice and actually very clever sci-fi film that blended itself extremely well with a home invasion type film. You know, it was kind of like, oh yeah, what if we throw science fiction into a home invasion film? How would that work? And this is it. This movie did it. And this is directed by Brian Duffield, who is mainly a writer. Like he helped write like Underwater and The Babysitter. And I believe that this is his first crack into directing. And if it is, boy, he made one hell of a start. And it also just proves that it just proves that there's a lot of writers who they can write really well, but then they throw their 2 cents in there and go like, I can actually direct as well. Like, like Jordan Peele or even like James Gunn. And I think Brian Duffield, while this is his first film, and I believe he's working on another film now, he established himself super quickly, like, hey, writers can do more than just write, which is awesome. And yeah, this was just such a good movie. And I think when this came out, like people were talking about it throughout the week, and then it just faded away. Like no one else was talking about it. And like, that's really a shame, because this, like I said, this is personally, I think, one of the best movies I've seen of the year, because of just how inventive they made everything and how they did everything. And then it's almost like this movie, it's like you're constantly going up a staircase, except you can't see the top. So it's like, okay, you're starting out the bottom step, and then slowly but surely you're walking it up, and then it keeps building and building and building and building and building, and it doesn't seem to want to slow down. So then when you finally reach the top, it's like you have to kind of take in like, wow, what just happened? And the ending of the film, I won't say, but I think works pretty well. Whereas it's kind of like a, well, that's the end. That's the end. So I think it works quite well. And yeah, this was such a inventive movie to then, when the parts that were like freaky were actually freaky. Like there were times where I was like, oh my god. Like I said, like I was on the edge of my seat. And there were times where I was getting like chills. And not a lot of films can do that. And when a film can do that, they've succeeded quite well. So No One Will Save You is just a fantastic. It's just a great film. Um, I'm trying to figure out what I can say to give this an amazing, but as it stands, this is a very high grade. And like I said, this is one of the best films of the year for me. And so I'm trying to kind of figure out like, well, what is it that's not pushing it to go into the amazing category? Um, and like I had like the film was freaky. There were moments in there that I weren't expecting, and there was even like a moment or two in there where I actually started laughing because of what they did, because it was just so quick that I just started just laughing. But this is a great film, and I think if you are a science fiction geek, definitely check this out. And a super underrated film, and like I said, it's personally one of the best films of the year for me.